Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This is the first Chatty video that I am filming in the new year, so it's quite exciting for me and it's also quite overdue. Today's video is going to focus on making this Marian Martin mail order pattern. This consists of a vest and a skirt, and this pattern actually came with its original mailing envelope, which I thought was super cool. And I will link where I purchased this from down below. It was very inexpensive. I think it was like $5 including shipping. So I'm really excited to make this because I've wanted an outfit like this for a long time. I really enjoy the vests that I do have and I would like to have a couple more of them. Starting with one made out of this fabric. And you're probably thinking that this is going to be hideous, and I will admit that there's a chance that this might be hideous, but I love this really bright, festive looking plaid fabric, and I've looked at a whole bunch of garments on Etsy that are made out of things of this print, but all of those garments are made out of wool, which means that they are dry clean only, and it takes a very special garment for me to be fussed enough to pay to maintain it. So I haven't purchased any of those garments, and instead I've decided to make my own out of this machine washable kind of faux wool flannel from Joann's. It's part of the Platitudes collection. I've used it many times before in many other prints, but I bought this a while ago to make an 18th century costume out of, to make into an 18th century costume. There we go. But I used this exact same fabric in a different print for an Outlander dress, and that has made me not very excited to use it for another similar project again, which means I can turn it into this. And I will probably have plenty of it left over because I think I've got like 9 yards of it. So that is just a close-up, and the tissue paper is here. Since it is a mail order pattern, it doesn't have a proper envelope. This is folded to both display what the garment will look like and to read the instructions. So the pattern just comes tucked inside of that, and then it obviously has the mailing envelope. These are all the instructions there are, so I'm hoping they'll be pretty easy to put together. And this pattern is in a size 16. It is made for a 34-inch bust, a 28-inch waist, and 37-inch hips. So I'm definitely gonna have to let the skirt out, and I will probably add a little bit of extra seam allowance to the vest, just in case. I'm not going to make a mock-up, which I might end up regretting, but that is what I've decided. So I'm gonna get all of these pieces ironed and then we can just get straight to cutting this out. Okay, so according to the pattern, the first step for making the vest is sewing the side front piece to the front piece. So I've got the side front piece for the lining and the front piece for the lining, and then I have those same pieces cut out from the plaid. I'm gonna do the plaid first because these have to be very carefully basted together. And I have to make sure that I'm doing this with the right sides facing each other because it's a little bit difficult to tell which is the right side with this one. Also, in case it wasn't obvious, I got the front pieces, or rather the pieces for the vest, completely cut out. I haven't cut the skirt out yet because I don't know kind of what grain line I want to cut things out on. So I'm holding off on that, and in the meantime, I'm going to sew these pieces together. Now, as I said in the intro, I think, if I didn't say it, then I meant to. In this video, I'm going to be talking about making this vest set, obviously, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about 2019, what my plans are, what my resolutions are. And as I also said in the intro, I really wanted to film this at the beginning of January, and then I wanted to film it in the middle of January, but I kept putting it off because I already failed at my resolutions, which is okay because they're more kind of general resolutions for the year than they are something that like I feel the need to stick to every single day. But I was kind of disappointed in myself and I felt a little bit embarrassed talking about it. I also didn't finish filming my vlog video from December until the middle of January, so I wanted to wait until I had that finished too, and that took a long time to get finished. But now it is done, and I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about my plans for the year and my plans for the channel because it's going to change a little bit. I really hoped that posting very regular content throughout 2018 would lead to an increase of subscribers and views and really help YouTube promote my channel. But my views have stayed pretty much the same despite me putting a lot more effort into filming. So that was kind of disappointing, but it was okay because right now Patreon completely funds this channel and the cost of materials for the things that I'm making. It's just been absolutely fantastic and really allowed me to pursue this more seriously, whereas the alternative was kind of getting a job and stopping making videos altogether. So Patreon has been awesome, and that's the reason that I'm still making videos throughout this year, and that's the reason I was able to make them so frequently in 2018. I'm really incredibly pleased with how Patreon turned out last year. I did not expect it to get the response that it did or to get the following that I did or to have kind of the interactions over there that I've ended up having. So I've really enjoyed Patreon as a whole, and I hope anyone who has signed up for it has enjoyed it too. So yeah, as I said, Patreon has basically made it possible for me to keep making videos even if my overall view count hasn't gone up. But considering the fact that my view count hasn't gone up, it's made me feel a little bit more comfortable taking a step back and focusing less on frequent uploads and more on higher quality content just in general, which I've seen a lot of people requesting. But the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people request historical projects and videos on more elaborate things, which take more time, which means I can't upload as frequently. Then on the other hand, I'll have people saying that they really miss it when I don't upload every single week. So it really is a case where I kind of can't please everyone, but I'm going to do my best to kind of have more of a mix of content in the new year and focus on filming some more elaborate historical costumes while also keeping up with the more casual vlogs and vintagey stuff. I'd also really like to bring weekly vlogs back. I think those are some of my most consistently popular videos. I always get a lot of positive feedback on them. The reason that I didn't make any in 2018 is because my mental health wasn't that great, and I don't think I'm going to talk at length about this, but I struggled a lot in 2017, and I made a video talking about that. And I thought the reason that 2017 was so rough was because I had a lot of disappointing things happen and things outside of my control happen. But then in 2018, none of those things happened, and if anything, I felt worse. And it made me realize that I might kind of be the problem. I spent a lot of 2018 just feeling like crap and feeling incredibly tired and unmotivated, and when I did have positive days where I got a lot done, I was really excited to be working and excited about my projects. I wanted to focus on actually getting stuff done because those were the days that really drove forward any productivity whatsoever. And I haven't really wanted to talk about that because I'm really embarrassed about that. But I realize that it's not necessarily my fault. It might just be my brain chemistry's fault. And I'm going to try and get that sorted out. And I'm going to see someone about that. And hopefully I'll be a little bit more positive this year and feel a little bit better mentally, and that will allow me to film more frequently. But anyway, that was a long ramble, but the gist of that is that I might not be uploading every week on YouTube. I'm probably going to be uploading every week over on Patreon because I'm still going to be having 2 bonus videos a month over there. But on YouTube, I think I'm going to focus on a mixture of more complicated historical videos and tutorials, as well as some more casual daily vlogs and project vlogs and stuff. And I will be finishing Sewing Through the Decades. That isn't going anywhere. I've made mock-ups for both of the 1960s projects, and I'm looking forward to getting started on those. I've also got the fabric and patterns for the 1970s, and I'm going to do a vote over on Patreon to see which one you want me to make. And yeah, that is moving forward. I'm not abandoning that or anything, and I'm still going to try and go through 1 decade a month and be a little bit more consistent about that so we can get through the remaining few decades. But after that, I think I'm going to slow down quite a bit and kind of focus more on quality over quantity, since quantity definitely wasn't helping my channel. And if you're wondering why I can't do both, it's because those more elaborate projects take more than a week to make. So I can't make a video every week about them unless I want to have kind of 6-part series about a specific project. But in the past, I really struggled with doing that. People have been confused about where the ending is, where you can see the project finished, if there are more videos in the series, even if they're linked in the description box. And that's why I try and have projects kind of contain to 1 or 2 videos about them and potentially longer videos about them, because that just seems to work better for the people who are actually watching them. But it will depend on the month. As I said in a recent video over on Patreon, I have a list like a mile long for the videos I want to film in January and the videos ideas that I just have in general. I'm also going to be starting the bonus projects for Patreon, so those will be a little bit more in-depth and about some pop culture things. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm just looking forward to the new year in general. I'm feeling a lot more positive about it than I was kind of expecting to be feeling about it, which is good. So those are the front panels all basted together. The next step is sewing darts into the back panels. But first I'm going to pin together the front panel linings, and this pattern doesn't call for lining. I just thought it would look nicer, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I'm going to make sure that I mark the buttonholes on the correct piece. This is the correct piece, actually. I am so guilty of marking buttonholes on the wrong side and then having things close backwards. It is just not intuitive to me which side they should go on at all. Okay, so those are the lining pieces. And now for the back piece, I forgot to cut the lining out on a fold. So I'm just going to sew it a 1/2 inch away from the edge, and then I will be back to mark things. I was making mock-ups for 1960s projects yesterday, and we're officially out of perforated pattern territory when it comes to patterns, and I already miss it. It is so much more convenient for marking darts. I don't love it for marking other things, but for darts, it's fantastic. I really deeply miss it, especially for darts that aren't just straight where you can connect the dots with a ruler, so you actually have to mark the lines through the paper. It's such a mess. This is so much better. And I'm gonna use a Sharpie to mark this, just because this fabric is so dark that it isn't going to show anything, even if the marker does end up bleeding through. And I have washed things made from this fabric before, which is how I know stuff doesn't bleed through it, in case you're extra concerned. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pin those so the lines are matched up and my pins are going through both lines. And as far as New Year's resolutions go, since that's kind of the theme of this video, even though you probably didn't know that was the theme of this video when you clicked on it, all of mine are very different, but they all kind of relate to the same thing, which is preventing anxiety. So I'm pretty sure I said this before, but I am an incredibly anxious person, and I try not to talk about it too much because it's really not relevant to my channel, but all of my New Year's resolutions kind of surround avoiding anxiety. I can't stop my mind from worrying about my bank balance, but I can be more on top of inputting my expenses into accounting software, so I'm very aware of my bank balance, which I think will really help. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to, I don't know, my weight. Like, I can't, you know, necessarily like control how I feel when I look in the mirror, but I can exercise a little bit more and make an effort to eat healthier. So that's kind of the theme for all of my resolutions. I'd also like to be better about communicating. I am the worst at responding to emails. I'm really nervous about it, and I'm like this with phone calls too. So I tend to put it off, but then I feel like I need to have a reason for putting it off, or I need to have like the best response ever because it has clearly taken me a while to formulate it. So I end up just putting off emails for a really long time, and sometimes I don't respond to them at all, and then I just feel worse about it. And again, managing anxiety, and managing the parts of that I can control. Like, I can't control the fact that I don't like responding to emails, but I can control how quickly I do it so it doesn't hang over me for the rest of the week. So I like to be better at responding to people. I'd like to use an accounting software more consistently, and I'd like to be aware of all my purchases. So I'm not necessarily going to try and spend less money this year, though that is an overall goal, but I just want to be really aware of how much I'm spending on clothing and shoes and fabric, and be very aware of the amount that I'm putting towards those items. And I'd like to be more focused on social media in general. I feel like I was so focused on YouTube this year that I really took a step back from Instagram and from writing. Instagram was kind of negatively affecting me, just seeing what everyone else was doing and feeling like everyone was doing better things than me. And I talked about that in 2018 and that I was aware that was an issue. But it turns out being aware that something's an issue doesn't necessarily make you immune to it. Kind of took a step back towards the end of the year, but I'd like to get back into it and get back to posting somewhat frequently, but maybe not just mindlessly browsing it as often as I used to. I'd like to get back into writing too, because that was such a big part of my process for such a long time, and I really kind of lost my way with it last year, and that makes me sad. So I'd like to pay more attention to my abandoned social media pages. And I also want to redo my portfolio site. I ended up canceling my previous portfolio hosting site, so now I'm in the process of setting up another one. And that's kind of a short-term goal, but I really want to get that done. So I'm just pinning together the facings in case you're wondering. So this is the front facing, the collar facing, and the hem facing. And I probably could have done without these since I am going to be lining it, but this makes the lining process easier. It means I'm basically flat lining it instead of kind of like trying to finish all the edges underneath the lining. And this is the lining for the arm side. So I'm setting that aside for now, and I'm just going to sew this. I'm going to sew the darts, and I'm also going to sew these pieces, and then I shall return to you. Okay, so I've done quite a bit of sewing, and annoyingly, I can't get these stripes to match up symmetrically. They just don't want to work, and that's because these are cut on angle, which means they are wider than the stripes that are cut straight. So I just can't get them to match up perfectly. This side is closer than this side, but I think if I rip them out again, I'm just going to end up mushing up the fabric and making the seams weaker and still not be able to get it to match. So it is what it is, and unfortunately it isn't perfect. But now I'm just going to go ahead and pin the back panel on top. I'm going to sew the shoulder seams and the side seams, and then I'm going to repeat that process with the lining. So the next New Year's resolution I have, since I don't have a whole lot to say about this project, it's going remarkably well so far, but I didn't make a mock-up, so it might end up not fitting, which would be very sad and disappointing, is to make one thing a month that I'm proud of. And it doesn't have to be a big, elaborate 18th century court gown. It might just be a chemise, which is really impeccably made, or a hat, or a corset, or a vest like this one. Like, I guess it doesn't even have to be historical. I just want to make one thing that I'm really happy with every month and try and put whatever time and energy I've left after doing worky stuff a day into sewing something that I genuinely enjoy and really want to be working on. Because I have so many ideas and I have so much fabric, and I just haven't been putting the time and energy into turning those into the projects that I'm excited about. So that's something I'd like to focus more on. And I know I've said Patreon like a million times this video, but for the $16 patrons and the $36 patrons, every month they send out prints, and they're of a costume. And I was looking through my print archive and realized that I don't have a whole lot of costumes left to get prints of, because there just aren't that many that I'm happy enough with to want to share photos of. And that tier isn't really going to be sustainable unless I continue to make projects that I want to get printed. So that's kind of motivating that, but I also just think it'd be really good for me, because I kind of lost my creative energy last year. I Camera just stopped recording because it ran out of space, and then I went to switch out the memory card and it launched the memory card in behind a drawer that is not supposed to come out of the unit it's in. So that'll be a fun adventure to recover tonight. I was just saying that I think I lost my creative energy a little bit last year, and a lot of that was because I was depressed and I just didn't have a lot of energy in general. But I think it was also because I wasn't focusing on the projects that really make me super enthusiastic, though there definitely are mid-century projects that do. So I'm going to try and balance the historic with the mid-century a little bit more next year. We'll see how that goes. But first, I'm going to sew up these seams. So that is everything sewn, and now I'm going to go ahead and iron this. And I'm probably going to iron it off camera just because it's really difficult to set up my camera on the ironing board. I have to change the lens, and you can't really see what I'm doing because it's an overhead shot and the iron's in the way. And if I have the iron, or if I have the tripod set up behind me, then my shoulder's in the way. And I always iron absolutely everything. It's just more convenient if I don't film it. So that is what I'm going to do. Actually, hold that thought. I've just realized that these are like ½ an inch from lining up the sides. So I'm probably going to rip that stitching out and then rebase this and sew it again. So anyway, the next thing on my list, which I have already completely broken, is that I want to exercise every day. I am just not built to exercise. Like, I get a rash when I try running or walking or doing anything at all athletic. My body physically rejects the process, and I have to take Benadryl to get the rash to go away. And then I end up being really exhausted, not getting that nice endorphin rush, which is like the only reason to exercise other than, you know, being healthy. I do feel like, kind of regardless of what your day looks like and regardless of how you're feeling, you should be able to take 5 minutes to do some form of exercise. And there are so many YouTube videos out there that are like 5-minute leg stretches, 5-minute abs, 5 minutes yoga. Like, I really don't have an excuse to not be doing those things. That being said, I haven't done those things so far this month. And then I'd also like to enjoy and care for my surroundings, which I've already broken. And again, I didn't want to be like vacuum every single day or make sure your bathroom's cleaned every week or anything like that. But I do just want to keep my space tidier, since I enjoy my space a lot more when it's tidier. It just ends up being positive for my productivity, positive for my mind. So it really makes a lot of sense to do that, and I think it would really help me. But again, I've been busy and I don't have enough space for all the things that I'm working on, and things have been sorted by piles instead of bins, and that's just kind of the way it's been. But I'm gonna try and get on top of that and be more consistent about that throughout the year. It's not perfect, it's not going to be perfect because the angles are different, but that is better. It's now like a 1/4 inch off instead of being a 1/2 inch off, and it is symmetrical on both sides, so I can live with it. And now to the iron. Okay, so now my battery's flashing, so the camera's probably gonna die again. This video is going so well, but I'm basically just going to, well, not basically, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm pinning the lining into the outer shell with the wrong sides facing each other, sorry. And I'm just going to pin around the bottom edge and the top edge, making sure that all these seams line up. And the facing is going to finish all the raw edges. So I just have to make sure these line up. I don't have to actually sew them together or anything. And this is the facing. So you saw me pinning all of these pieces together. Then I sewed them and ironed the seams, and then I just folded the inner edge inward by a 1/2 inch, or approximately a 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to pin this onto the entire edge, like literally all of the edges except for the arm openings of the vest, and then I will sew it on with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That pinned beautifully. Usually with facings, you kind of have to ease some stuff. They end up being slightly off, but this was perfect. And luckily, I remembered to add a 1/2 inch to the back edge of the facing to account for the fact that I let the side seams out. So it just worked out amazingly well, and now I'm going to sew around this entire edge with a 1/2 inch allowance. While I do that, I'm going to continue charging my camera battery because it continues to flash at me quite aggressively. Okay, so I just finished sewing in the facing around the outer edge. I did a quick fitting, and it seems a little large. I did add a 1/2 inch to the side seam, so I let it out by a total of 1 inch, but it seems about 2 inches too big, so I might end up adding a pleat at the back, which was often done as just a stylistic choice in the 1940s. So that's what I'm leaning towards if it ends up being too big, but I'm going to wait to decide that until after I've put the buttons on and sew in the buttonholes. In the meantime, I'm going to bind the arm openings. So there is this piece, which is the facing, and this is the side that faces the front, if I recall correctly. So I'm just going to clip a notch so I remember which side is the front, and then I'm going to sew this up with a 1/2 inch allowance, and then I'm going to pin it and sew it around the arm openings, just like I did with the facing around the entire edge. And overall, that facing process went incredibly well. I really like the weight of this fabric for doing facings on things like this. It's too thick for fiddly stuff, but it also feels almost like it's naturally backed with inner facing. So I feel like it looks really, really sharp, especially with the steam iron that I was using. I also just wanted to mention that before sewing these on, I have turned the outer edge of the facing inward by a 1/2 inch. And I believe the instructions actually say to sew this down, but since I'm going to whip stitch across that entire edge, I don't think it's really necessary. But it's much easier to do this before sewing it on than after. I just wanted to say that I've officially recovered my memory card from behind the drawer. I also found some yarn, which I have not seen in probably 8 years. And what really shows it age is the fact that there was a feathery snap bracelet back there. So perhaps it was even longer than 8 years. My wrist is actually too large for the snap bracelet, so I think I got it at a kids' party that I probably went to when I was about 5. That's lovely. I need to take those drawers out more. So this morning I got the buttonhole sewn to the vest, which means it is pretty much done. I don't know where I last left off, but all of the facings are sewn in. It's fully lined. I'm really liking how it looks. It is still a little bit large, but I don't want to sort that out until after putting on the buttons and doing a final fitting over the skirt. And speaking of the skirt, I actually got it completely cut out the same day that I made the vest. I did it off camera because I wasn't sure how I was going to let it out. It was originally intended for 37-inch hips, so I need to let it out pretty significantly. So I ended up adding about a 1/2 inch to the lower 3/4 of the side seams, and then I also let the back seam out slightly so it tapers out by almost 1 inch. So that should give me another 4 inches of room in the hips and also make the hem a little bit wider so it's a little bit more flowy and less pencil-y shaped, which I don't mind at all. Then the other alteration I made was cutting the front piece with a seam down the center so I could do this chevron sort of design. Or I guess it's not chevron design because it's not going to continue on the side panels of the skirt. Those I cut with a straight grain line. I just wanted to do something a little bit more interesting down the front. So again, I cut out a whole bunch of cotton. It's the same cotton I used to line the vest. And I'm going to line the skirt just because this is a bit of a heavy fabric to be sewing French seams with, but it is very prone to fraying, so I don't just want to leave the edges raw. So it's going to be fully lined. And I'm probably going to assemble the lining first, or at least that's what I should do. And then I can do a fitting with the lining and make any changes to my outer fabric. But I'm honestly probably going to assemble them kind of at the same time. And I'm not in a very chatty mood today, and I feel like I talked a lot when I made the vest, so I might do a bunch of this as a time lapse, then come back in tomorrow when I'm sorting out the waistband. So I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but this was a fantastic idea. I am very, very annoyed that the waistband is not symmetrical at the front like the stripes are. That totally throws the eye off.
but it is too late to fix that, so we are just ignoring it. And aside from that, I really like this. I think the fit of it's quite nice. It's probably a little bit too big. It kind of gapes away at the back when it's supposed to be more fitted. So I probably could have gotten away without adding the extra additions that I made, but I do kind of like that because it makes it really comfortable and easy to sit in. I did pin and then sew the back of the vest, so it has a much tighter fit. The vest is not the most flattering. I definitely prefer the skirt, but I'm going to get it finished up anyway. So now I just have to sew the closures into the skirt, and I also have to sew the buttons onto the vest. So now all that's left to do is hem this, and I actually pinned the hem and had it all ready to go yesterday, but I didn't actually trim the hem, so some parts were like 3 inches wide and other parts were 1.5 inches wide, and it didn't look very pretty on the interior. So I just went ahead and marked a line 2 inches away from my desired hem, and then I folded the edge inward by 1/2 inch, then inward by 1.5 inches to give me a nice 2-inch hem. Now I'm just going to whip stitch it down. I apologize for my nails. They're really not at their best today, so I have to redo them tonight. It's funny, a lot of times people will guess how long a project takes based off of how many nail polish colors they go through, which is somewhat valid, but I regret to inform you that I just skip around between projects a lot, so something doesn't necessarily take 3 weeks because you see 10 nail polish changes. It might have just taken 5 hours, but those 5 hours were spread out over a month. That being said, I do paint my nails a lot too. I probably paint them 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how much work I'm doing and how much filming I'm doing, because I like it when they look nice in videos.
Well, this is just a lot of look, isn't it? But what a great look it is indeed. To be honest, I wouldn't usually pair these pieces together. In fact, I think this entire set would look a lot better with a black hat and black shoes and a black coat and a black blouse underneath it. But the high collar of this vest actually requires a really high necked blouse, and I don't have that many of those in my wardrobe. So I either need to buy some or make some, or I need to undo the top 3 buttons and wear it open like it has a lapel, which I think would actually look really nice and was probably more common in the 50s and 60s in terms of styling. That just wasn't the case for this specific pattern. So this overall look might be a little bit much and probably isn't how I'm going to wear this on a regular basis, but I am pretty happy with this project and how it turned out. I think the vest is really great, and I think the skirt is really pretty flattering too. I do wish that the waistband lined up. That kills me a little bit inside, but it did make me feel better when I was browsing Etsy last night and noticed that a lot of the plaid skirts didn't seem to have any symmetry when it came to the plaid placement on the waistline. So though that still wouldn't have been ideal, I don't feel as bad about it anymore. I also found that after hemming this, there was so much stiffness in the hem that the pleats in the skirt were kind of puffing out as opposed to hanging straight. So I definitely need to steam those in place and potentially even tack them in place. But I do like the shape of the skirt and the vest, and I like the pieces together more than I was expecting. I think it's a really cute, though very busy, ensemble, and I hope I manage to get some wear out of it this year and for many years to come. And as I said earlier, I do have a matching pair of plaid pants that I can mix and match with, so that'll be great too. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing me make this, and enjoy the finished result too, though I realize that this probably isn't for everyone. In fact, this video probably wasn't for everyone because it was a lot more chatty than they usually are, but I hope it was enjoyable regardless. And before I go, I just want to give a huge thank you to all of my patrons. As I mentioned several times in this video, they've been a big part of what has allowed me to continue making videos this year and what allowed me to make so many videos last year, and I just appreciate the support more than you can even imagine. I'll have a whole bunch of names on screen of people who have contributed, but I want to give a special shout out to my top tier patrons, who are Jordan Carpenter, Heidi Nizer, Tabitha Langston, Steffi S, Dot Cosplay, Mo Quintana, Rachel Bishop, Sharon Cyrith, Christina Lott, and Janet Abbott. I really appreciate the support. As I said, I appreciate the support from everyone. And if you would like to join the little Patreon family, then there will be a link to it in the description box down below. I post a bunch of exclusive content over there, as well as early access to most of my regular content. And on that note, I'm just going to end this video. If you did like it, then giving it a like and a comment really helps me out. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to all of you very soon.